A Crip carried an 80% kit pistol, but his lawyer beat the system. Crip Loke was a neighborhood Crip. He grew up in the crew, but it was a small set, and he was rumored to be the only member banging in his neighborhood. 99th Street. Crip Loke enjoyed doing the same things as most people in his area, including going to barbecues, sea walking, and frequenting the swap meet. At 29 years old, he had learned to get along with his neighbors and even made friends across neighborhood lines. He was maturing, one might say. But as a younger adult, C. Loke had gotten arrested, charged, and pleaded guilty for unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, basically stealing a car. And for that crime, he served 1 year in the state jail. Crip Loke, however, wasn't just an ordinary simple man, enjoying barbecues and sea walking. He also enjoyed working with his hands. He was into mechanics and building things. He worked on cars, motorcycles, and his favorite thing was building and customizing firearms. One day he decided to build a custom 9mm pistol. He ordered a barrel, trigger kit, and other parts, but the main part was a frame, which he purchased online from a company that advertised a blank frame, which they claimed was 80% complete. All Crip Loke would have to do would be to precisely drill various pinholes and slots into the frame in order to accommodate the other parts. This was going to be a fun weekend project, he thought, and in a few weekends, he had his own custom pistol, which he proudly put together himself. One night, Crip Loke got a knock on the door. He looked through the camera and it was a friend from another neighborhood. They had been somewhat close because they knew each other from middle school, but this time his friend came with something strange, an 85-inch television. The friend said that he had taken the television from someone that owed him money from a bet and had to balance it on his head while avoiding police by taking back roads all the way to Crip Loke's home. He politely asked Crip Loke if he would let him hang out, with his new TV of course, until he could get a ride. It went against his better judgment, but Crip Loke didn't refuse and let his friend hide out at his home until later when a car came and picked up his friend and the TV. What Crip Loke didn't know about that night is a friend had actually broken into a pawn shop and took the first item of value that he could get his hands on as the alarm blared. That same evening, local police officers got an interesting report from a neighbor. It was based on an anonymous tip. The caller said that she was a neighbor of a man known as Crip Loke, and that she saw another man bring a very large television into his home in the middle of the night. However, when the assistant asked for the caller's name, she said that she preferred to remain anonymous. At the time, police officers couldn't do anything with such sparse information, but the substance of the call was forwarded to the precinct's property crimes unit. The next day, a detective was forwarded a case regarding a reported burglary of a pawn shop. A window was broken, but the only item missing was an 85-inch television. Later that evening, the officer was catching up with a bulletin prepared for property crime detectives when he noticed an anonymous report regarding an anonymous call reporting a man bringing a big screen television into his neighbor's home in the middle of the night on 99th Street. And as it turned out, this home was only 1 mile from the intersection with the street where the pawn shop burglary occurred. He checked who was the residents of the home, and it was a certain Crip Loke. The detective then wrote an affidavit of the facts that he gathered and requested a warrant from the magistrate, which was granted according to the following language: location and property to be searched. The premise of 5555 Unit C, 99th Street, including all rooms, surrounding grounds, garages, and outbuildings assigned for the property, to wit, an 85-inch Samsung television. That evening, law enforcement announced themselves at Crip Loke's home and turned over the entire home. One officer even entered Crip Loke's room and emptied all of his drawers and found Crip Loke's custom pistol loaded with 10 rounds of normal precision AB 9mm Luger caliber ammunition. C. Loke was then arrested and charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. His family was able to post bond shortly thereafter, but the district attorney did something strange. You see, Crip Loke had become something of an internet sensation due to his popular TikTok sea walking tutorials, and given that and his name, Crip Loke, the DA believed that Crip was more a dangerous and connected individual than what initially met his eyes, and he decided to drop the charges, but only after he called his colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office, as a federal conviction for a similar offense carried a higher penalty, up to 15 years, according to 18 U.S.C. Section 924A8. The U.S. Attorney's Office issued its own warrant for Crip, which was promptly enforced, and he was ordered to remain in federal detention after his arraignment hearing, being charged with the following. On or about September 3rd, 2023, within the Central District of California, defendant Crip knowingly possessed ammunition, namely 10 rounds of normal precision AB 9mm Luger caliber ammunition contained inside a semi-automatic handgun. In and affecting interstate commerce, defendant possessed such ammunition knowing that he had previously been convicted of the following felony crime, punishable by a term of imprisonment exceeding 1 year: unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. You see, because 18 U.S.C. Section 922N prohibits a felon from possessing only those firearms which are shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce, the feds were unable to charge Crip with the pistol itself because it was not a pistol before he put it together, and had never in fact been a firearm before being shipped, while being shipped, or after precisely it was shipped. It was mere parts. However, the ammunition was store-bought and bore the trademarks of the company, and had been shipped in interstate commerce and carried the same penalty as a prohibited firearm. And it is here in federal detention where we find ourselves. Crip loyal followers from his dance tutorials pulled together their funds on a crowdfunding website and hired him an attorney who met with Crip in detention. After meeting with his client and reviewing the law enforcement affidavits and viewing body cam footage, he noticed several key issues that he would be contesting. Firstly, the warrant was based on an anonymous tip, so his lawyer believed that this was not enough for probable cause. You see, according to the law, an anonymous tip is not enough to issue a warrant, but there needs to exist various other factors which would give the magistrate a substantial basis to issue the warrant. Illinois v. Gates, 462 U.S. 213, 1983. And this is important because a warrant issued without probable cause would be unlawful and thus could provide the court reason to exclude evidence obtained from the search executed on the basis of the unlawful warrant, so that even had the TV, been found in plain sight after entering the premises, it would be inadmissible as the fruit of a poisonous tree, let alone the ammunition. This is known as the exclusionary rule. See Mapp versus Ohio, 347 U.S. 643, 1961. Secondly, the lawyer noted the scope of the warrant was precise: an 85-inch Samsung television. That's all detectives had the authority to look for. However, the law is that if the scope of the search exceeds that permitted by the terms of a validly issued warrant or the character of the relevant exception from the warrant requirement, the subsequent seizure is unconstitutional without more, citing Horton versus California, 496 U.S. 128, 1990. However, in this case, the kind of TV named in the warrant was impossible to find within the drawer of Crip's dresser. Hence, the scope of the warrant was violated, and hence, this part of the search was also unlawful and also rendered the evidence unlawful. Crip's lawyer filed a motion to suppress with the court and set a hearing, alleging that the evidence was obtained unlawfully and ought to be suppressed pursuant to the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. At hearing, the defense made arguments from his motion, and the state had a chance to answer in kind. The state responded that the totality of the circumstances show that the magistrate had a substantial basis for probable cause under Illinois v. Gates. And she argued that regarding the sufficiency of probable cause contained in the warrant, that the coinciding circumstances of a burglarized 85-inch television, the distance of the burglary from the defendant's home, and the timing of the burglar alarm and the anonymous person's call taken together were sufficient to overcome any doubts regarding the trustworthiness of an anonymous caller and hence constituted sufficient probable cause for the magistrate to issue a warrant. Furthermore, she argued that the officers were operating under a warrant issued by a detached magistrate and that even assuming that the warrant was defective, evidence obtained from the search should only be suppressed if, quote, the officers were dishonest or reckless in preparing their affidavit or could not have harbored an objectively reasonable belief in the existence of probable cause, quoting United States v. Leon 468 U.S. 897, 1984. Regarding the issue of officers exceeding the scope of the warrant, the federal prosecutor argued that this was mere inadvertent discovery. Responding also citing Horton versus California, she argued that because the officers were permitted to search behind the dresser, it would have also necessitated that they remove the drawers in order to move the dresser, and hence the ammunition would still be admissible as it was an inadvertent discovery, and to add to it, at that point, the pistol was also in plain sight. After hearing the attorney's argument, the judge noted that the warrant was indeed valid, noting that the U.S. was correct in its assessment regarding the coincident circumstances creating a reasonable basis for probable cause when taken all together. However, the judge decided that the scope of the warrant was still violated because any electronics possibly hidden behind the dresser would be clearly visible without even moving the furniture, let alone emptying the drawers, and hence the ammunition would be ruled inadmissible under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. In light of their lack of evidence after the court's decision, the U.S. attorney had no choice other than to move to dismiss its indictment, and Crip was released back to his home, where he continued posting CWAP, TikToks, and building things, besides firearms, of course. This case study was partially inspired by YouTuber Crip Mapp. The only facts that are similar is the referral of the charge to the U.S. attorney, the charge of felon in possession of ammunition, and the crowdfunding of an attorney. You see, Crip Mapp was a person who put out interviews while being genuine, a trait lacking among many online. So we saw his vulnerabilities and gang affiliations, but also his sense of humor and his love for the poor. So when he was arrested, his followers in Channel 5 crowdfunded him an attorney, and he bargained for a sentence of 3 years of federal incarceration, a far cry from the 15 years he was facing. It was a beautiful result and a reminder to us all of the benefits of paying our successes forward. If you enjoyed this content, then please leave a like and subscribe as it helps the algorithm. And as always, remember your rights, but more importantly, remember the rights of others.